How difficult is it to obtain development finance for airspace development?
Airspace is difficult, and the key is to find developers who are prepared to fund airspace.
Yep.
Luckily, those who are not prepared to find airspace are very clear about it. So the moment you knock on the door and you say, I have an airspace deal, they would say, no, thank you. And the no, thank you is more valuable and helpful than, oh, maybe we'll look into it and then I'll come back and say no later on, right? So there are a few developers that are prepared to fund airspace. They have a specific process and specific hoops you have to jump through in order to obtain airspace finance. The biggest challenges is if you have an occupied building and you're building on top of existing building with people living in it. Because apart from disturbance to tenants, apart from health and safety, apart from putting scaffolding around existing building where people live and children live, you also have the rights of leaseholders that you trespass on. You create an inconvenience and nuisance, and they have the right not to be nuisance and not to be inconvenienced in the process. So any of them, if you do wrong move in a building like that, any of them can complain and enforce the rights. It's an issue. You create noise, you create pollution, you create inconvenience to them. You want to park your vehicle somewhere and you block the parking lots. You want to put your materials somewhere and you block again the parking lots and no access to the building, etc. Another challenge is Building Safety Act 2022, which we should cover on later in the process here. That is very difficult to comply, and in fact there is a lot of ambiguity around how to comply. And then you have things like party wall awards. When we think about party wall awards, we think about neighbors on both sides of your property. But when it comes to airspace, the party wall awards become vertical between the upper floors and the lower floors, in particular when we are building on top of commercial building or even just the residential occupied buildings. There is lots of issues around construction and the creating the soundproofing and creating the airs. How do you separate the existing floors from the new floors and you do this correctly and you're building in the air. So there's lots of lenders who feel uncomfortable about this and some lenders who are. So we need to be very clear what are the guidance. And then you have things like masts, telecommunication equipment that is on the roof and it's there for a period of 20, 30 years. And the owners of those masts, they don't have to remove the equipment. You need to reach an agreement with them about relocating that equipment. It could be costly and it can take anywhere between 12 to 18 months just to finalize those negotiations. So there's lots of challenges with airspace, but there are ways to do it, and there are some lenders who will be happy to work with you on that.
And is there anything from a developer's point of view that they should really be looking for when trying to identify these opportunities? Anything that's going to make it easier for then going and obtaining development finance?
Nothing will make it easier. It's
trying to find a shortcut somewhere.
Well, that's for a good reason. There is no shortcut. There's particular things that needs to be taken care of when you deal with airspace, and that is why majority of the airspace transactions, you don't purchase the airspace, you purchase an option subject to. And that subject to will be being satisfied with various requirements. For example, the telecom equipment we just mentioned. This can take such a long time. So if you purchase the airspace subject to removal of telecom equipment, then you can take the time to negotiate, and then you can take the time to relocate.
You're not paying interest and things like
Precisely.
that.
And the site is there, secured, waiting for you, but you satisfy yourself with everything around it, and only if you're satisfied, you then complete the transaction.
So what's the difference between airspace and vertical extension?
Oh, that's a good question. So there is no difference, technically. It looks the same. You're building on top of existing building. So visually, it looks the same. You're adding some floors on top of existing building. But some lenders have clear differentiation between airspace and vertical extension, where they call it vertical extension when you own the building, the freehold to the building, and it's vacant. If it's vacant, you can do whatever you want to it. You don't have tenants to deal with, you don't have leaseholders' interest, you're not trespassing on anyone's property, you're not blocking anyone's parking, you are in full control of the site. When you're in full control of the site, lots of the problems that you face with airspace development and leasehold interest
not gonna have with that
disappear. Exactly. You still have to deal with your Building Safety Act, but beyond that, you have very little to worry about in terms of the challenges Airspace have.
Yeah.
So when it comes to vertical extension, a lot more lenders will work with it. But when you submit the inquiry, 90% of the time, the inquiry comes in and the brokers would call it Airspace.
Yeah.
So if you call it something else and you specify what is it, you actually have a better chance of getting a wider pool of lenders to support that transaction.